Yuta Akatsu and Kinji Hakari, two characters who have been in the limelight in the recent months, and they've displayed the best fights so far in the Culling games. However, I believe that these two specific characters are not on the same level, and I'll tell you guys why. But before I give you guys a reasonable explanation, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit that notification bell to stay updated on latest uploads. This video will contain spoilers from the manga. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN, and it's thanks to them I was able to make this video. I'm sure there are a lot of you guys out there who are worried about protecting your data and privacy when it comes to the internet, but that's where Surfshark VPN steps in and protects you. By getting Surfshark VPN, you can protect yourself from potential hackers, and you can even change your IP address to ward off any threats. I guess you could even say that Surfshark is stronger than Gojo with the way it'll protect you online. But the best part of all of this would be being able to change your location to get access to better content online. The biggest example of this would be Netflix. We see the amount of anime that we are missing out on when it comes to Netflix in Japan, but by using Surfshark VPN, you can finally watch all the latest and even unreleased anime on Netflix by simply changing your location to Japan. It's as easy as that. There are so many more benefits that Surfshark VPN provides, such as blocking those annoying pop-up ads, keeping your searches private, being able to freely access the internet in countries where it's internet restricted, and so much more. So with that said, you can get 83% off as well as an extra 3 months free if you use the promo code ARZIN by clicking the link which will be in the description below. Especially in this day and age, you will need a VPN, and the best option is Surfshark since it's really helped me out online. So of course, for those who want to stay secure on the internet, be sure to click the link down below and use my promo code. Anyways, why don't we get back to the video. Now I know what you guys must be thinking. Why the hell do I not think that Yuta and Hikari are on the same level? I think the most recent chapters really opened my eyes on the vast power scaling system that Akutami has put into place, and it is extremely complex. For example, the thought of Jogo's power was stepped on when we saw his first battle against Gojo. It was an unfair matchup, but it didn't mean that Jogo was weak. So if you look into Yuta and Hikari more closely, I reckon we'll find out certain things that keep these two apart, power and ability wise. So with that said, let's get straight into the video. Understanding both Yuta and Hikari will be quite the task, but from the moment that they both had their little cameo very early on in the Jujutsu Kaisen series, we were all extremely excited of what will come of these hidden characters. At the time when Yuji had only learned the basics of Jujutsu, Gojo would mention the caliber of his previous students, showing us Yuta Akatsu and Kinji Hikari for the very first time. But amongst those characters, Gojo believed Yuji to also be a part of this new generation of sorcerers that will someday get to his level. Anyways, from what we understand so far in the Jujutsu Kaisen series, is that both Yuta and Hikari are polar opposites. Yuta keeps to himself and is a pretty nice guy, whereas Hikari is seen as bashful and isn't afraid to get straight into blows. A similar way Aoi Todo took his approach on things when we had first seen him in the Kyoto Goodwill event arc. However, we do notice quite a few differences between the pair. Yuta Akatsu was dragged into the world of Jujutsu just like Yuji, whereas for Hikari not much is known, but for someone with his persona, he thrives off going up against the very strongest, which makes sense in his recent battle against Hajime Kashimo. But the greatest similarity that Hikari and Yuta do have is their hatred towards the higher ups. Yuta was used as a scapegoat during Yuji's extermination arc to of course put an end to Yuji, but through the advice of Satoru Gojo, he didn't follow through with what the higher ups demanded. Hikari on the other hand went with a direct approach and attacked one of the higher ups from the Kyoto school. But we also have to keep in mind, we still don't know too much about Yuta and Hikari. Their introduction back in the series was quite recent, but one thing we can dwell into is their battles and abilities revealed to us so far. Like I mentioned before, Jujutsu Kaisen is indeed a complex series, but through understanding each individual's powers and abilities, as well as the scale of their battles, will help us realize the difference in levels between both Yuta and Hikari. So we'll start off by analysing Yuta Akatsu. However, we won't be diving into his past in the Jujutsu Kaisen Zero prologue, but instead dissect what current level he is at right now in the series. So Yuta made his long-awaited appearance into the main timeline of the Jujutsu Kaisen series in chapter 137, saving a young girl from a cursed spirit and then being seen in a meeting with the higher ups. The first thing we notice is how the higher ups appreciated what he had just done, assuming that Yuta wiped out a majority of the curses unleashed by Kenjaku in Shibuya. As for what grade they were, I'm not sure, but that in itself is pretty insane. But the deal breaker of understanding Yuta's powers and abilities a lot more would come in chapter 140, when he had taken on Yuji Itadori. The main points I'd like to take away from this battle with Yuji would have to be his immense aura. enough to even frighten that of a grade 1 sorcerer, which is of course Naoya Zenin. We witness Yuta's immense physical capabilities during this altercation, but I'd like you guys to take a note of this specific part right here. Yuji notices the insane cursed energy which Yuta has, with Yuta stating, "I've got more cursed energy than Gojo, but Sensei has the 6 eyes, so the energy that's lost when he activates a cursed technique is infinitesimally close to 0. Of course Sensei is the best, after all I can run out of cursed energy, but he doesn't." Then we see a little explanation from Aoi Todo about how an elite sorcerer's movements and next attacks are completely unpredictable compared to an average sorcerer, giving Yuji an extremely hard time. But what we can take from this is how Yuta has an immense amount of cursed energy, more than even Gojo. Moving up forward into the series, we begin to learn more about Yuta's progression as a character. The expedition and training he underwent with Miguel during his time in Africa completely changed the way he became as a sorcerer. I recently stumbled on a channel called Blaziken Anime, and there was a specific video titled "Did Yuta Lie?" I'll leave a link down in the description for those who would want to watch it. But the general theme of this video was breaking down whether Yuta lied about Hakari being more powerful than he was. But what caught me was the idea of Yuta being humble. It was quite interesting because we usually see Yuta in a different light than the other characters in this series. For being a special grade sorcerer, we saw him as quote unquote humble. Yuta has a vast array of cursed techniques under his belt, but when he's surrounded by the likes of Maki or his friends, we do notice how he keeps up with his timid side. However, it's a completely different story once he's pitted against an opponent, which is natural of course. Let's fast forward to chapter 148, when Master Tengen and the other sorcerers discuss the plan of the Culling Games and how to retrieve Satoru Gojo from the prison realm. At this moment in time, Yuji and Megumi were assigned to ask for help from Kinji Hakari. Yuji asks if Hakari is tough. Yuta replies, well, he's moody, but when he gets worked up, he's stronger than I am. Maki commented, that's not true. This statement from Yuta alone was enough to cause hell within the JJK community, but what if Yuta is being truthful here? The reason why Maki would say it's not true about how Hakari is stronger is most likely due to her biased opinion on Yuta, but another reason is how confident Yuta is in his own abilities. From the outside it may look like he's being humble, but that may not be the case. For example, chapter 174 displayed that during a battle, Yuta can be pretty confident. When he came up against Kurorushi, he stated, "I will kill Kenjaku, I alone will get those 400 points. So this in itself not only shows the progression Yuta has made since Jujutsu Kaisen 0 days, but it also reveals to us how he has a completely different persona when coming up against powerful foes. There is also another statement that we should keep a note of, and that was in chapter 173 of the manga, when Yuta was reintroduced into the Culling Games just after he had killed off Dhruv Lakdawala. It states, after the night parade of 100 demons, he regained his special grade status in 3 months. In this modern era, he is second only to Satoru Gojo. I mean, if Akutami is stating this himself, it should be as clear as day that Yuta is indeed the second strongest. But the fact that Akutami involved Hakari with the power set that he has literally has my head spinning. Anyways, I think it's now the best time to break down Yuta's most recent battle, which revealed a lot to us. That was his battle against Uro Takako and Ryu Ishigori. From the get-go, we realized that Yuta was immediately put on the back foot against Takako's sky manipulation and then somehow surviving Ishigori's granite blast. But we need to understand how powerful Takako and Ishigori are when compared to the modern day characters. Starting off with Takako, although we didn't get to see much of her techniques, we understand that she can manipulate the sky whichever way she wants. She also uses thin icebreaker technique, which essentially shatters the sky itself and allows her to strike her opponent. Then you've got Ishigori's cursed energy discharge. Due to Ishigori's immense amount of cursed energy, surprisingly more than Yuta, he can direct cannon-like beams to attack his opponent, with several of them being shot at once. But the main power of Ishigori's would easily have to be his granite blast, being one massive beam, enough to destroy several city blocks. But one thing Takako and Ishigori have in common is being able to utilize a domain expansion, a rare technique only a few can master. But these two set it off without hesitation. Although we didn't get to see the extent of their domains, from their techniques down to the domain expansion, Takako and Ishigori are easily rated as special grades. Not only that, but Yuta took them on, with each of them having a score of over 70 points in the Culling Games. Yuta's abilities are on a different caliber. He acquires the copy technique, which allows him to unconditionally copy an opponent's cursed technique through his connection with Rika. He also has cursed speech, which he copied from Inumaki, granting him the power to do things at the command of his own voice. Then you've got Yuta's ability to summon Shikigami, creating small bats that circle the opponent and slash anyone inside of it. This technique was copied from Dhruv Laktawala. Then of course Yuta would go on to steal another cursed technique, which was Takako's sky manipulation, as well as their thin icebreaker. He can also use the reverse curse technique that only a few people in the series have mastered. The collection of Yuta's abilities are endless, but what will be the deal breaker to him and Hikari not being on the same level would be his usage of Rika. It's known that Rika can be used as an external storage which contains various curse techniques that he's copied as well as curse tools, but only through the ring can Yuta be connected with Rika, which will be a key factor towards the end of this video. However, the catch with Rika is that she can only be used for 5 minutes, meaning the usage of those copied curse techniques and extra levels of curse energy would come to an abrupt end after 5 minutes, leaving it all down to Yuta's own strength to battle. So with this key information understood, let's move on to Hakari. Hakari would make his very first proper appearance in chapter 155, where he and Yuji would have a conversation about passion, and it made me realize how similar Hakari and Todo are, both being extremely strong, however honouring the idea of one's desire to keep pushing forward. But in this specific chapter, we come to realize that Hakari isn't just a knucklehead, but can read situations as clear as day, realizing Yuji's bluff right from the get-go, as well as a phone call he had got from Kirara. We all know that Yuji isn't weak at all, but to constantly keep him on the defensive from brute strength alone should tell you all you want to know about Hakari. But the key part to his little altercation with Yuji would be about Hakari's cursed energy, Yuji stating, "What's up with this guy's strikes? Regardless of the force behind each blow, they're painful. It feels like I'm being slugged by a baseball bat with razors," and it can be seen how Hakari's cursed energy appears to surround his body with really sharp edges. But we can understand that Hakari's curse energy is not as immense as Yuta's, but it packs an extremely sharp punch. But the other key part would be shown to us in chapter 158, where Hikari comes to an agreement, but the Kogane appears and shows the highest scoring culling game player in Tokyo Colony number 2. Megami takes a peek and it shows Hajime Kashimo with 100 points to his name on the top of the scoreboard. However, Megami states this guy originally had 200 points already, with Yuji mentioning he's killed at least 40 people in the past few days. Hajime Kashimo is no joke at all. Yuta faced off against Dhruv, Kurorushi, Takako and Ishiguri, who all have combined points over 200, but it's a much different ballgame when one individual has racked up 200 points in a matter of days. It would then be in chapter 160 where Hikari says, "Judging from the scores, Kashimo is the strongest guy. It's only reasonable that I should be the one to fight him." For Hikari, it's not overconfidence, it's the fact that he is genuinely strong and he is also confident in his own abilities. But fast forward to Hikari's battle against Charles Bernard in chapter 182, but here we will get to understand Hikari's ever so complicated domain expansion known as Idle Death Gamble. At first my brain couldn't comprehend it, but with the explanation from Gloken on Twitter, it'll be a lot easier to analyze. If you guys want to read this Twitter thread, I'll leave the link down in the description below. Anyways, Hikari's domain expansion uses pachinko machines as a basis for his domain. To understand his ability and what happens in detail, you need the basic understanding of pachinko. So what is pachinko? Pachinko is basically a slot machine game popular in Japan. Because gambling is banned in Japan, so pachinko is kind of their version of slot machines. Pachinko machines shoot small silver balls at a crazy pace. The balls cascade down, bouncing off and directed by a series of pins. Eventually they drop towards the bottom center, and the main idea is to hit as many jackpots as you can with the amount of balls you've been given. Moving on, Hikari uses the pachinko machines as a basis for his domain, but it doesn't play out how it goes in actuality. Pachinko machines in real life have themes, and since Hikari can choose what type of theme it will be, in this case he used a romance shoujo manga as the gambling content. You get introduced to 7 characters all having a number. The goal is to get 3 of the same characters in order to hit a jackpot. The jackpot will result in Hikari gaining a bonus that's not known to him. Pachinko has a reach mode, and Hikari obviously does as well. In the actual pachinko, if you roll 2 of the same numbers, for example 4 and 4, and the one number differs, you get a chance to re-roll and get 3 of the same numbers, which will result in a jackpot. Hikari's domain expansion works differently. You have preview performances which are balls, shutters, pseudo spins. 3 colored balls, green means low chance of a jackpot and gold means a big chance of a jackpot. So basically green, red and then gold. Same rule applies with the shutters, which are the train doors if you guys are confused. When there's a 4th try or rainbow colored ball, it means a guaranteed jackpot. Think of the 4th try as a pity pull on gacha games. A pity pull is literally the game mechanics, taking pity on your bad luck and guaranteeing you success on the next pull/roll, in this case a jackpot. Preview performances are basically when the balls and shutters should function as an attack, but the true purpose is to see what type of performance scenario will occur. 1 star is low hype, 2 star is mid hype, 3 star is big hype, which is an 80% chance of a jackpot. Next are the reach scenarios. Similar to how different animations during gacha games give you a big chance of pulling better characters, the reach action also has scenarios tied to its hype. The scenario with more than 3 stars means there's an 80% chance of a jackpot. Still trouble understanding? Basically they're cutscenes that have a probability tied to them. The chance of a jackpot with a low hype cutscene is low, and it goes up depending on the hype tied to the cutscene. After that would be the chance up. Even if there's a scenario playing with low probabilities, once one of the chance up scenes come to play, the chance of a jackpot goes up. It's a guaranteed jackpot with the last scene mentioned group preview. So no matter what low probability cutscene is playing, the chance of a jackpot goes up with the chance up. The group preview scene gives you a guaranteed jackpot. Then you've got bonus. Hikari gains a bonus from each jackpot which he can stack. The bonuses are like prizes for winning the jackpot, and what the reward will be is unknown to everyone including Hakari, but the bonuses he stacks are what makes him dangerous. Think for example of boost rewards such as damage multiplier, curse energy boost, or even damage nullification and so on. This then takes us to the game flow, where Hakari starts at the regular stage and you go back to the regular stage until he hits a jackpot. This means you're stuck in a loop and the domain doesn't end until you beat him or you lose. After this would be the probability change. Once he hits a jackpot, for the next play he either gets a probability change which results in a scenario that will only result in another jackpot or time reduction. The probability change looks like a scenario that has a 75% chance of becoming a factor after the jackpot is hit. According to the game flow, the probability change results in another jackpot. This could be change resulting in Hakari gaining a bonus after bonus, thus being on a roll. It's short for Kakuritsu Hendo, which is probability shift as translated in the chapter. Basically when you hit a jackpot in pachinko, there's a chance it'll shift the rates, so it's more likely you hit more jackpots after that. So once you hit one jackpot, you can chain jackpots in short order and get a really big payout. That's also the whole jackpot fever concept too. Don't worry, we're almost there. Then you've got time reduction. It doesn't really describe what it does, but basically in pachinko you get a spin every time the ball goes in. If your jackpot doesn't trigger a probability shift, it can trigger time reduction, where the slot for balls get wider and more balls can go in. Since more balls can go in, you get more spins, so they shorten the animation time on the spin to fit them in, thus time reduction. Once he hits jackpot, there's a 75% chance of probability shift that leads to another jackpot instantly. Hakari's domain is extremely powerful in potential. Charles mentions how you're stuck in a loop and can't attack until the performance is done playing. You have two choices: get overwhelmed or try to beat him when the performance ends. Hikari can attack Charles during performances, but it looks like Charles can't hit back, only defend. Then you've got Hikari's luck. Now in terms of this domain expansion, it all depends on luck, and somehow Hikari manages to hit the jackpot, and that's all due to his luck, and him being lucky is a skill only he possesses. But it would be in chapter 186 where we would see the full extent of Hikari's domain expansion, in which during his battle against Hajime Kashimo it states, when Hikari hits the jackpot during Idle Gamble Death, his prize is that during the round, which lasts 4 minutes and 11 seconds, it grants infinite curse energy to flow through him. It also mentions how even though Hikari doesn't know how to use reverse curse technique at will, due to the infinite curse energy flowing through him, by reflex he's able to regrow his arm and avoid damage. This basically means that after hitting a jackpot, Hikari is immortal for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. This even gives Hikari a much higher probability of constantly hitting the jackpot and improving his domain. What I understood once Hikari activated his domain expansion against Hajime Kashimo is that he is indeed terrifying. So with all of that said, how come I believe that Yuta and Hikari are not on the same level? Mainly due to Hikari's battle against Hajime Kashimo. Throughout the countless jackpots that Hikari had hit, Kashimo not once uses curse technique on him, but it's understandable because being caught up within Hikari's domain, he'll need to constantly be on the defensive, but regardless he went toe to toe with him even in his immortal state. Kashimo saw the flaw in Hikari's ability, and that was him using his hand sign to initiate his domain expansion. Now although Hikari is extremely lucky, and his domain expansion easily being one of the best we've seen so far in the series, I would say he's just a single level lower than Yuta when it comes down to power and ability. At the end of the day, it comes down to the refinement of your technique. Hikari was able to push Hajime Kashimo into a corner, but he would lose his arm in doing so, putting an end to the endless cycle of jackpots that he was gaining. With Hikari, his main ability was just his domain expansion alone. It's what made him such a terrifying character. but as for Yuta, he is in a similar boat but has a wide arsenal of abilities he can put to use. Now we don't really know the extent of Hakari's curse techniques, but I'm not writing him off at all and just plainly stating that Yuta is stronger. They are both in the same league, but their techniques and abilities thrive in certain situations, and that can also be their downfall if come up against the correct opponent. When I stated that they are not on the same level, I meant more ability and technique wise. Yuta's powers and abilities come from years of trying to perfect the usage of Rika, whereas Hakari does indeed have some insane physical strength, but the key factor for him is his domain expansion and how lucky he can get with hitting countless jackpots. This video I just wanted to explain the extent of their powers and abilities and how they differ from one another, but I'd love to put these two in a hypothetical situation where they fight each other. So if you guys would like to see a similar video to when I put a full form Sukuna against Gojo but instead with Yuta and Hakari, let me know down in the comment section below. It'll be an exciting topic to cover. Well, we've come to the end of this video. I've got to say, Hakari is becoming one of my favorite characters. His domain expansion is so sick, but with that said, I know you guys have your own opinions on this matter and it'll be cool to see what you guys think, so be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. As always, like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you all in the next one.